What went wrong for Sandy Alcantara this season, and how did Goldie go from MVP to Phony? Join us today as we talk about players that busted in 2023 on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ane, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ane. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings or reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And also, if you do leave a 5-star rating and review and take a screenshot of it and email it to us at fantasymds@gmail.com, you will have a chance to win a spot in our coveted listener league for next season. Also, if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel, also gives you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And lastly, join our Diamond Club on the Subtext website. Through Subtext, it's a lot more than we can offer in this 30-minute podcast. I know the season is coming to an end, but especially in this last week, you may want to make sure you want to join if you are playing for a fantasy baseball championship. And you know what? Even if you play football, we can talk a little bit of football in the Diamond Club too. And also, we're going to be dropping our rankings for next year. Just a lot more, as I said, than we could offer in this 30-minute podcast. So, Locked On Fantasy Baseball fans, we have a fully loaded episode for you today. As always, let us be your team secret weapon as we talk about the biggest bust from this current fantasy baseball season and try and figure out what went wrong with all of them. And Matt, we got a lot of big names up here that did not perform up to par. And who are we going with first?
Yeah, I mean, might as well just talk about the biggest disappointment of the season, and that's Sandy Alcantara. Honestly, a lot of people were drafting him as like their pitcher one. Some leagues, he was going number one pitcher overall. And quite honestly, it's just been a fugly thing. Like, it's just like, what is going on here? I mean, my guy had 184 innings and 151 strikeouts with a 4.14 ERA with a 1.21 WHIP. Like, that is really ugly in comparison to a season prior of 228 innings pitched, 14 wins, 207 Ks, a 2.28 ERA, and a 0.98 WHIP. Like, those are the numbers we expected, something similar, maybe not sub 3, but, you know, maybe 3 on the dime. Sandy Alcantara, quite honestly, should have been a lot better than what he did. And for the draft value, it's ugly. I traded and did do a buy low this year. It was just such a bad move, thinking I was being sneaky. We recommended it. It just didn't play out the way I wanted it to. Nor did it really play out that way for anybody, unfortunately. But it is what it is. But let's look at what really went down, right? So Sandy Alcantara last year was completely consistent. He literally had a sub 3 ERA all season long. And in 2 of those months, a sub 1. I mean, a sub 2. This year, he only had, this is ugly. He only had 2 months under 3 months under 4, July 331, August 348, and then September 225. So he did pick it up before he got hurt. And was shut down for the rest of the season. Sandy Alcantara looked like he was returning to himself, so maybe he's not a complete bust in terms of if you did acquire him closer to the trade deadline, he might have panned out for you. But if you got him during the earlier in the season, if you drafted him, you were not happy with his production. It's all good signs for next year, but I'm not drafting him as a top 5 arm. I don't think he's part of the elite 3. I think he's more of like, you know, a 9, 10, 11, 12 pitcher off the board this year. For 2024, I just think that Alcantara overall is just somebody that's just was an absolute disappointment this year. And I think he'll bounce back just fine next year.
Yeah, Matt, great take on Sandy Alcantara. I'm just going to add he was the number 3 pitcher off the board last year, averaging around pick 22.8. So, if you did have him on your team all year, you probably were not very satisfied with the results from Sandy. I honestly think it's, he's thrown so many innings over the last 3-4 years that sometimes it takes a toll on your arm, especially when he hadn't really thrown. He made a huge jump. He pitched around 150 innings in 2018. He went to 197 in 2019. 2020 was the COVID year. He only threw 42 innings, but then 205 in 2021. And last year, he had 6 complete games last year and 228 innings. That's a lot on anybody's arm. So I think it finally started to add up. And the big thing with Sandy going into next year is he was shut down again in his rehab on his way back this year. And according to the Marlins, they're not 100% sure on what's going to happen here in the offseason. The general manager, Kim Yang, said there's a decision that could potentially impact his 2024, and it could be surgery on the way. He was diagnosed with the UCL sprain, so that never really leads to good things. So if Sandy does, come back healthy, he's outside of my top 10 right now. I probably have him at 12, and that might even move down a little bit after this news that came out about 3 days ago. So Sandy, buyer beware for next year. He does have the talent, obviously, to be one of the best arms in the game. And, here at Locked On Fantasy Baseball, we do wish him well in his recovery, and hopefully he can, make some impact next year, because we've lost so many good pitchers going into next year that, the pitcher shortage was real this year. It's going to be even more real next year. So to be determined with Sandy Alcantara. Let's move on to somebody that really didn't have, a lot of injury concerns and just pitched pretty poorly. And Matt, I think your bold prediction actually came true with this guy. It's Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease, just a bad year, which, we kind of predicted here, especially Matt. He went out on a limb in his bold predictions, and I believe the prediction was Dylan Cease would finish outside of the top 40 starting pitchers, and I think that's actually accurate. Matt, you could double-check that one to see if you are correct. I think you were. Cease on the year, 7 wins, 8 losses, 4.66 ERA, 32 starts, 172 innings, 207 strikeouts, which was nice, but a 1.42 whip, which was atrocious. Matt and I did have him ranked around maybe 20th when he was being drafted. Let's see. He was being drafted as the 13th overall starting pitcher, pick 44. Did not pan out. The whole thing is, if you look at, Cease's numbers throughout his career, last year was kind of an outlier. We know that he does have the talent to be very good, but he reminds me of a Robbie Ray type pitcher where, Robbie Ray has that Cy Young caliber season. And then, the rest of his career was kind of, he had a couple good seasons here and there. But, usually high 3s ERA, big strikeouts, and the whip is usually going to be, 1.2 to 1.3 range. For Cease next year, he's probably outside of my top 20. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't even see where I have him ranked here. I think I kept him off my rankings till I did my deep dive on him and, made that determination. But if I had to guess, he's probably somewhere in the 30s, man. I'm just not going to take that risk, especially on the White Sox team. That's not good, so you're not really going to get the wins either. But that's what I got from Dylan Cease.
Bro, I should have. I'm blown away. He's not even a top 100 pitcher.
Wow, should have put money on that one.
I really should have. I saw it coming. I don't even think I had him ranked in my 20s. I think I had him in my 30s. If I were to go back to my rankings, I guarantee that's where he was. Dylan Cease just played well above board. There was a lot of factors that went into that, and quite honestly, he's a great talent. Don't get me wrong, but something showed me and gave me the willies, and it said run, and that's exactly why this season happened. But before we do, we talk about obviously probably one of the most disappointing people of all year. Another pitcher that we don't know what happened. He's a favorite here, and a closer that is just absolutely sad and can't believe it.
So we're going to talk about one of our best sponsors. We're going to talk about Neutrophil here. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Neutrophil provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. Did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's normal, but it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of thinning with Neutrophil. Neutrophil is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Take the first step to a visibly thicker, healthier hair for a limited time. Neutrophil is offering listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Neutrophil.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDON. Find out why 4,000 healthcare professionals recommended Neutrophil for healthier hair. Once again, go to Neutrophil.com/men and it's spelled NUTRAFOL.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. And once again, that's Neutrophil.com/men and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. And dear everydayers and new listeners, we have an incredible opportunity for you to support the show and enjoy some fantastic perks along the way. Introducing our Diamond Club on the Subtext website. By becoming a member, you not only can contribute to the show's success, but also gain access to exclusive benefits. Get your hands on waiver wire rankings, call-up alerts, injury updates, instant reactions, and in the off season, it's going to be a little different. You're going to get exclusive access to our rankings. We're going to be talking busts. We're going to be talking strategy for next year and a lot more than you're going to hear on this podcast. And guess what? You can try it out completely free for 14 days. Your support means the world to Matt and I, and we can't wait to connect with you on this exciting journey. Join our Diamond Club on the Subtext website today, and let's take your fantasy experience to new heights. All right, Matt, that is a lot for me there. Why don't we hop back on in? And as you said, I think this next guy has a chance to be the biggest bust of the year for sure.
Yep. And before we talk about this dude, I just want to remind everybody, please leave a 5-star rating. And, you can get a shot at the Listener League this year, get another spot. So, yeah, all you got to do is, leave us an awesome review and shoot us an email at fantasymds@gmail.com. And just send a screenshot of it. It'll be great. And throw you in the drawing for it. All right. Let's talk about Alec Manoa. Alec Manoa, I really thought he was going to be good. Dom actually was hesitant, but, I didn't believe him. I wish I would have got the Willies because he did not even give it to me. He gained a lot of weight. That was part of it. But usually what happens when pitchers get a little bit more gain weight, they get a little bit more power. They start looking like, what was that, Cologne? Where Cologne put on Cologne just freaking, he just kept getting bigger and bigger. I guess he found a really nice restaurant by his house and just kept getting bigger. I guess Manoa is the same. It's probably all that poutine, but poutine's good. I don't know if anybody had it. It's pretty much French fries, gravy, and cheese. It's great. Yes. Maybe just found poutine and just kind of just went off with it. He's a big boy. He likes to eat. But no, unfortunately, he kind of just, took a poop in his big boy pants, honestly. Slider only lost about a mile per hour, not even. Changeup was exactly the same, like whatever. Fastball was 1 mile per hour slower. Like even the sinker was not even a whole mile per hour. Like there was nothing that really indicated his demise here in terms of like advanced stats, other than the fact that his control just pretty much went out the window and he pretty much just looked gas. Like I guess the pitch clock really did it for him. My gosh, should probably go to a cardiologist to see what's going on if he ate that much poutine.
Matt bringing the haterade back. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, because, quite honestly, like, the kid is really good. Like, it pisses me off that he really just went out, ate too much poutine, and just got fat and didn't do the work. Like, I swear, I have a feeling the pitch clock played a lot into it because he probably was able to catch his breath after, in between innings of scarfing down more and more poutine, and just he was able to just chill out. Now it's boom, I gotta throw, boom, I gotta throw, boom, I gotta throw. Alec Manoa is somebody for next year that I am going to just keep an eye on. He's not even really going to be ranked for me, but he will be somebody that I will say he's a dart throw at the end of your draft, where if he is in the rotation and he's somewhat performing in the spring training, I'm willing to take a dart throw on him towards the end of the draft, where see what happens. Maybe he returns to form if I hear he lost 20 pounds, even if I heard he loses 10 pounds. Maybe my guy found a cardio regimen. Maybe joined Orange Fitness for all I know. Something along those lines where Alec Manoa is getting in shape, and it'll be encouraging for me to want to go and get a share of him.
Yeah, Matt, good take there on Manoa. I saw it in spring training. I watched a couple of his spring training starts. The guy looked like he went out and he ate Lance Lynn. That was my joke that I was making. He just looked huge. Like he was a big guy to begin with last year, but like he just looked like he gained like 40 pounds out of nowhere. On the year, Manoa had 3 wins, 9 losses, 5.87 ERA, 19 starts, 87 innings, 79 strikeouts, and a 1.74 WHIP. Something obviously went wrong. My big thing is on top of seeing all the weight that he gained, his FIP always threw me off. Once again, FIP is fielding independent pitching. It's an ERA indicator. Last year, Manoa had a 2.24 ERA, a 3.35 FIP, and his rookie year, he had a 3.22 ERA and a 3.8 FIP. So I saw that, didn't line up really for me. I was like, something is, a little bit off here, kind of in the same sense of like what Dylan Cease went through. Manoa was coming off the board as the 17th overall pitcher, pick 50.6. So, I mean, you really paid a decent amount. You probably had him as a high-end SP2, and it just really didn't work out for Manoa. But, Matt, you did a great take there. I really don't think I have anything else to add. But let's move on to one of somebody Matt and I actually really liked coming into the year and busted. It's Christian Javier. And, man, this one is just really hard to figure out what exactly went wrong with Javier, because Javier just had a monster career and there was really not a lot of indicators. I guess this is one, if you kind of really looked at the FIP in his career too, that kind of could have led you in the right direction. But I really think, I really thought as a full-time starter for the first time in his career last year, he had that monster year. Javier's stuff is very good. And he was even getting Spencer Strider light comps, not even from myself, but guys that are way better and, more intelligent when it comes to baseball than I am. So I was really on board, and Javier's season just did not go well. 9 wins, 4 losses, 4.64 ERA through 29 starts, 151 innings, 149 strikeouts, and a 1.28 WHIP. Now, he was better than Manoa, but he wasn't anywhere near as good as we were drafting him, because Javier was coming off the board at the 20th overall starting pitcher, pick 58.2. So another guy, probably, your SP2, and it just really didn't pan out. I know I had one big league where I just kind of dropped him at the end of the season, and then he goes out and he had that huge start against the Baltimore Orioles. So that's kind of what you get as a Javier owner this year, is a big kick in the face, and he slams the door as you're walking out on him. But you know what? As Matt said with Manoa, I kind of want to throw a dart Javier's way at the end of next season. If you can get him as one of your last starting pitchers, and I think there will be upside to be had with Javier.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy too. Like, I try to look at advanced stats this time of the year and just see okay, what really went wrong, right? And I'm looking, right? So his fastball hard hit rate was 40%. This year, 39.2. What's the difference there, right? Same thing with the slider. It really wasn't too far off. Actually, last year he had a higher hard hit rate on it. Curveball, that was a little bit higher, but he really didn't throw it as much. He really was a 4-seam fastball guy and a slider. His changeup really wasn't thrown all that much, but it was getting hit around a little bit. There was nothing that was seriously out there that you would look at this kid's stats, like his advanced stuff, and be like, yo, what's the difference between last year and this year? I think, honestly, he could have had a case of the tips where he was probably tipping his hand a little bit more of what pitch he was about to throw. There was something that somebody caught this year, and everybody pretty much picked up on it. Let's hope that he could correct it. Christian Javier is somebody, like Dom said, that we're going to be keeping an eye out on things and seeing how he's going to perform going into the spring training for next year. He's definitely worth a look-see-do in the offseason. But before we move on, we talk about one last pitcher and a whole bunch of bats that are going to be, and more people I'm going to be crying about like a little baby. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and giving your peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Chase Medical makes sure that you have the medication in hand. Chase Medical is simple. They handle everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Chase Medical Plus, an additional $20 off by using the code Locked On at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Promo code Locked On. All righty. And we're back here. Let's talk about Emmanuel Clase. Wasn't too classy this year, honestly. My guy was more of a redneck than he was actually a what do you call it? Than a classy man. It was bad. You know, like you look at the numbers on the year and it's really not like atrocious, but for honestly, what my number one after Diaz got hurt, it was pretty bad. 42 saves, that number's great. 64 Ks with a 3.18 ERA with a 1.16 whip. Those are the numbers that really bother me. He didn't even have a K per 9, which he had at least a K per 9 last year. He had a sub 2 ERA last year, whereas his 3.18, and he had it well under a sub 1 whip, where he had a 1.16. Like these aren't numbers that like we expected from Clase. Way I look at it is he probably lost you a few weeks in ERA and got blown up a few times in a single week that really hurt you or could have made the difference. Now, Clase was able to pretty much be one of the leaders in saves because he had a lot of opportunities, because the only way the Guardians are going to win games is close games, in all honesty. So he had the opportunity at least, but he wasn't blowing you away. He wasn't doing like a Felix Bautista where you had well over a K per 9, you had really nice ERA numbers, and you had the saves to boot. So Clase next year, I mean, I'm still going to draft him pretty high and hope that there's a course correction in the ERA and whip department. But he was a bust just based off of draft value, because he probably would have been like the 6th or 7th closer versus like the 2nd or 1st.
Yeah, Matt, great take on Clase there. The reason that he's on this episode is because he was drafted at pick 39.2 overall, the first closer off the board. So Matt and I's old adage of don't pay for saves kind of really, speaks up when you look at it this way, right? Because as Matt mentioned, Felix Bautista, who probably would have finished the year as number 1 closer if he stayed healthy, was going at pick 90. You had guys like Duvall at pick 104, Alexis Diaz at 147. And there was just a lot of value to be had at the closer position this year. So, Matt, great take there. I really don't have too much else to add on Clase, so I think let's just hop on into the bats. Let's talk about Paul Goldschmidt, a player who went from MVP to, kind of a bust this year, man, to be honest with you. As far as I'm concerned anyway, at 35 years old, that age is finally starting to show for Goldschmidt. Honestly, I probably will have him outside of my top 5 first baseman going into next year. Goldschmidt did play 151 games and had 584 at-bats, but he had 87 runs, 25 homers, 79 RBIs, 11 steals, and a 269 batting average, which isn't horrible. But, what I consider a bust is somebody that you paid, a high price for and they really didn't live up to it. Goldie was coming off the board as a number 4 first baseman, picked 21 overall. Just really didn't work out for Goldie. And as I said, it's just really the age. Father Time remains undefeated. Nobody has ever gone out there and beat Father Time, and Goldie is no exception. So I just think it's the old age, going into age 36 next year. I really don't like the prospects of him.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think he'll probably be like the number 5 or 6 first baseman for me. Goldie's Goldie. He's still timeless in terms of that. I don't think the bat speed has been too atrocious in that aspect. But yes, there's a decline with bats. There is an instant drop off if you start to see it teeter off. But he's on a slow decline. I feel like next year, if for instance, if the Cardinals start figuring it out, or if he gets moved to a team because there's a possibility he could be traded next year. They can then he could then get the boost as to where he is. We'll see what happens with Goldie, But that's really just about it. You did a great job there. Let's talk about JT Realmuto. Honestly, probably the biggest bust of them all. He was drafted as a number 2 catcher, was drafted at the top 50.
Number one catcher.
Oh, wow. Okay. And he really, really, really just like took a dump everywhere. Like, I didn't make it. Like, the runs down his leg and everything. It was really bad. He is a second half player. Don't get me wrong. So, like, you pretty much just have to make it to the first half, and usually it turns it on. But JT Realmuto didn't turn it on until about this last month with 14 runs, 5 bombs, 13 ribs, 4 stolen bases, batting .274. That's his last month stats. The total year numbers are fugly. 69 runs, 20 bombs, 63 ribs, 16 stolen bases, batting .253. Like, honestly, like, in comparison to last year, we had 84 ribs, 21 stolen bases, batted .276, and had 75 runs. Like, most of that was done in the second half. Like, that is good production out of the catcher's position. But you would have thought there was upside with Realmuto, being that he's on the Phillies. I honestly think that he probably should have had a much better season, especially with the addition of Trey Turner. And he's hitting in the 5 hole too. So he was pretty much put in position to be successful. So JT Realmuto really flopped in all aspects of the game. I'm not drafting him in my top 5 next year. I think he's just on a downward spiral, and I don't think it's going to be corrected.
Yeah, Matt, great take on Realmuto. Another guy that's getting a little bit older, 32 this year, 33 next year. The Phillies team is very good, so I'm still not counting him fully out for next year. Could have been something went wrong this year because the overall numbers aren't atrocious. Just my definition of bust is paying up for somebody and then they just don't, finish where you needed them to. And a guy that was coming off the board at pick 41.4, number 1 overall catcher, you could have waited and you could have had Adley, you could have had Will Smith, could have had Sean Murphy, William Contreras, just a lot of catchers. You could have even waited and got guys like Garver off the waiver wire, Logan O'Hoppe, who, has come back strong. Just there's a lot of value to be had at catcher this year, and JT Realmuto didn't live up to it. Let's talk about another catcher, though. Let's talk about Dalton Varsho, another guy that people had big expectations for, coming over from the Diamondbacks to the Blue Jays. Just this guy, this is the one that really had like a really disappointing year. 62 runs in 153 games, 507 at-bats, 18 homers, 56 RBIs, 15 steals, and a .221 batting average. And who was number 2 catcher off the board? Dalton Varsho at pick 51.4. Just really didn't live up to the hype. Another guy that I wasn't as high on that a lot of other people were. And, people want to talk about the steals. Okay, you can get your steals pretty much anywhere this year. And Varsho just, killed your batting average, didn't really stand out in any one particular category. And I know the 15 steals is nice from your catcher, but you could have supplemented that somewhere else instead of, getting a Varsho who, dragged you down pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, too, like, you got to factor in the fact that he was on a new team this year. So that new team, new year kind of downward spiral is just going to play effect in that. So he was prone to have a bad year. I had him as catcher 6, where I knew I wasn't touching him in any league. It is what it is last year. I knew this was going to happen. If anything, this year he may be a little bit more of a sneaky ed, and you're going to be able to get him at a discount. But let's move on. Let's talk about Cedric Mullins. Somebody that's been injury riddled this year after going 608 at bats last year to now 388 this year. Batting average was a little bit below a 240 versus 258 last year. Still chipped in 19 stolen bases, 50 runs, 15 home runs, 74 ribs. Like, quite honestly, the only reason he's even being talked about is because he just couldn't stay on the field. Maybe he was getting some tips from Alberto Montesi and things just kind of took a weird turn. Because honestly, he was on pace for, to match, if not hit his stolen base numbers and go past it, honestly, because he right now at 19 stolen bases through 388 at bats. Like, if he would have got to 600 like he did last year, even 550, he might have hit 40. And his home run numbers were already was one below what he got last year. He could have did a 2040 season this year. But again, he was really just a bust because he got hurt. But with that being said, Dom, do you got something to say, or are we closing this bad boy out?
Pretty much, as you said, abductor groin injury for Mullins this year. I still got to see where I rank him next year. Just a little bit of a down year overall in the sense of the 240 batting average kind of bothers me a bit. But you know what, Matt? I think we're going to call it there. Guys, once again, just thank you for staying locked on with us all year. If you got any Locked On Fantasy Baseball Championships, send us pictures in the DMs. We'd love to hear about them. But that's all for us today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Also, thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And be sure to look out for a new episode tomorrow. Until then, see you.